Papers to be laid. Statements by ministers.
I recognize the member for Nevis 1.
Madam President, good morning once again, and I want to say good morning to my colleagues on this side of the House, the member opposite, to all those persons who are present here in the gallery, to those who are listening and viewing this sitting. Madam President, I rise to make what I would hope would be a very brief statement on a few matters that I have oversight over. And, Madam President, I want to start with the all-important issue of water. I believe, Madam President, that the island of Nevis and those who continue to be in tune with what is happening here on the island will recognize that we experienced the failure of the Nevis Water Department's largest and deepest well pump on Friday, the 23rd of March. Madam President, the failure was discovered around 5 p.m., between 5 and 6 p.m. And the technical team, Madam President, would have done their initial assessment and recognized that the motor would have inherited a ground fault. And once a motor, Madam President, would have inherited a ground fault, then it would prevent that particular motor from operating. It means that the motor itself would have shut down. I want to say to the general public, Madam President, that this incident took place in the Foothills area. And I would hasten to add that the Foothills well site is the largest water producing site here on the island of Nevis. As a matter of fact, Madam President, it feeds the largest parish on the island, St. John's and St. George. And oftentimes, Madam President, it would give some support to St. Paul's when needs be. Madam President, I want to put this in context. The well, Madam President, also gave assistance to St. Thomas's, in the Jessop's area in particular, and to Four Seasons. And this particular site, Madam President, actually produces up to 55 to 60% of the water provided in those stated areas. Significant portion, Madam President. Madam President, this particular well is positioned some 650 feet below the surface of the earth. And therefore, the removal and installation, Madam President, will take some time. It will take some time. I want to say also, Madam President, that this particular well has been operating on a 24 hours, 7 days a week basis since early 2013. If my math is correct, that is some 10 years. And when we add the additional months for testing and proper setting, we actually get over 11 years of operation, Madam President. A pump that has been operating 24/7 for 10 or 11 years, non-stop. But, Madam President, in our business, we anticipated that this would happen. We anticipated that it would happen. because it has happened before in different areas where certain pumps would have received these ground fault and ceased to operate. We anticipated, Madam President, that this incident would occur. And in 2022, we purchased a similar pump and we had it in storage in the eventuality of what occurred on Friday. I would hasten to add, Madam President, that if we did not do that in 2022, we would have been in a very distressed situation all now. Madam President, I want to say to the people that preparation commenced on Saturday the 23rd, and the actual removal began on Sunday the 24th at 8 a.m. Took some time, Madam President. The task was completed on Monday at approximately 8:45 p.m. And after the initial setting, Madam President, and recalibration, the water harvesting process commenced at approximately 2 p.m. with a setting of some 260 imperial gallons per minute. Now, Madam President, water is not like electricity. We know that if you have electricity off, once all of the repairs and maintenance are completed and the Nevis were to turn back on the switch, you would get electricity in an instant. Water is not like that. It would take, Madam President, some time for the tanks to be filled and for all of those lines in St. George and St. John's to be pressurized before the various households can actually receive water in their households. It's a slow process, it's a tedious process, Madam President. Madam President, I want to take this opportunity to thank the head of our distribution here on the island of Nevis. A very young man, a very talented individual, a very skillful individual, a young man by the name of Wilson. And I want to, from this rostrum, Madam President, say a very big thank you to Mr. Wilson. Because initially, when we had our conversation as to how are we going to remedy the situation, I said, Mr. Minister, all that I need is the time. And he took the time, Madam President, to do what he needed to do with his team to ensure that we were up and running as quickly as possible. Now, Madam President, of course, I believe that all of us would have preferred that the water would have been able to be turned back on much more quicker. But by the nature of what we have to deal with, it took some time. Madam President, I want to also place on the record my sincere thanks to the entire team there in the production unit. And I believe, Madam President, that the people of Nevis can be proud and appreciate that here on the island of Nevis, we have some very skillful and talented young people. Skillful and talented young people, led by Wilson, another skillful and talented young man. And I want to say thanks to them, Madam President. We were assisted, of course, by a company with some crane services, LEFCO, and I want to thank the LEFCO company who worked with us around the clock to ensure that we were able to be back online. I want to thank the manager of the Nevis Water Department, Ms. Antonia Mills, for her contribution. Our operations manager, Mr. Roger Hanley, in his usual cool, calm demeanor under pressure. I want to say thanks to him as well for his contribution in ensuring that we were up and running. Madam President, I also think that it is important for me to apologize to the people of Nevis for the inconvenience. I'm not too big to apologize, Madam President. No fault of our own. It's a mechanical issue. But I want to apologize to the people of Nevis for the inconvenience. I am aware that a number of schools were closed. I am aware that a number of persons were unable to, I would say, leave their homes because they did not have water. And I want to apologize for that inconvenience, Madam President. I am hoping that this will not occur again. But, Madam President, by the very nature of what we are dealing with, we will from time to time see disruption in our water services. I also want to appeal to our people here on the island of Nevis to, as far as possible, try and have some emergency water supply. A 24-hour water supply. A few bottles of water. Or even, Madam President, a cistern. I am aware that we have on the island of Nevis a number of homes that have cisterns that are not connected. And I want to encourage our people to think seriously about having those cisterns connected. I also want to encourage, Madam President, to those persons who can find a way to perhaps install some storage facility, storage tank catchment, because these kind of situations will happen. It is within our purview, Madam President, to mitigate against them the best way we can and to reduce the downtime as much as possible. Madam President, I also want to say that while we encountered that groundfall situation in the Foothills area, we also recognize that we experienced a similar incident in the Potluck area, where it appears as though another pump is offline. And that, Madam President, will be remedied between today and tomorrow. It's a much smaller pumping station, some 60 imperial gallons per minute. And we are hoping that that would be remedied within the next 24 hours. That site, Madam President, is, I think, around 100 feet deep, so that will not take the length of time as did the Foothills tank. But these groundfall, Madam President, occurred. I am not going to cast any blame anywhere. It occurred. These are pumps that uses electricity, and we feel, Madam President, that from time to time we will see these kind of occurrences. Madam President, I want to advise the general public that we have not sat idly by when it comes to finding new sources of water. As a matter of fact, Madam President, I am happy to report that the UAE St. Nevis solar desalination plant project is currently online. Let me walk back that a bit, Madam President. Let me not say online. It's presently, the construction of it, Madam President, has started in the Butlers area. And we are anticipating, Madam President, in a few months that we will see an additional injection of some 76,000 gallons of desalinated water into the system, and that would be over a 24-hour period, Madam President. 76,000 gallons sounds small, but Madam President, it will go some ways to ensure that we can expand our sources of water here on the island of Nevis. And Madam President, this has been a project around since 2014, former foreign minister, 2016, 18? 2017, Madam President. It has taken some time. It has taken some time, Madam President, and I am indeed delighted to see that it is now entering in the construction phase, and we are hoping that in a few months we will have this new source of water in the system. Madam President, I also want to advise the general public that in October of 2023, the ministry would have, Madam President, issued some invitation to bidders on our pending water drilling exercise here on the island of Nevis. Madam President, we would have invited bids from Trans Global Engineering Limited on St. Kitts, XO4 from St. Martin, Zygon First Drilling Incorporated in the United States of America, Jamaica Wells and Services Limited in Jamaica, and Water and Oil Well Services Company Limited in Trinidad. Madam President, I am happy to report that the Nevis Island Administration would have awarded this contract to Water and Oil Well Services Company Limited out of Trinidad after much deliberation and much negotiation, Madam President. I am expecting, Madam President, that this contract will be signed this week. This week. And as soon as the contract is signed, Madam President, Water and Oil Well Services Company Limited will mobilize and will commence drilling here on the island of Nevis. Madam President, I want to say as well that this is a very important drilling contract here on the island of Nevis, because on completion we are expecting to see over 1 million gallons, Madam President, of additional water placed online here on the island of Nevis. And we are hoping, Madam President, that that will be achieved in very short order. Madam President, I want to say to all those who are listening, we are not just drilling, Madam President, in isolation. We would have commenced a geotechnical study that was completed and provided to the government last year, and we are using that data to drive the drilling process here on the island of Nevis. And we are very confident, Madam President, that the results will be highly successful. Madam President, I want to switch very quickly to the Labor Department. And the Labor Department, Madam President, have given me or asked of me to advise the general public that they will be celebrating a week of activities commemorating World Day for Safety and Health at Work. And Madam President, this is a very important and critical topic. This week of activity, Madam President, will commence on Monday the 22nd of April to Friday the 26th of April 2024 under the theme Ensuring Safe and Healthy Work Now in a Changing Climate. And Madam President, on Monday the 22nd, there will be an island-wide sensitization visit on workplace safety at construction sites. On Tuesday the 23rd, there will be Safety and Health at the Workplace seminar at the Malcolm Gishard Recreational Park, and they will be inviting the public and private sector. On Wednesday the 24th of April, primary and secondary school visit to sensitize teachers and students on safety and health at school and work. On Friday the 26th of April, physical and mental health promotion in the workplace in collaboration with the Ministry of Health at the War Memorial in Charlestown from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. On Sunday the 28th of April, there will be a church service commencing at 9 a.m. And on Sunday the 28th and on Monday the 29th, they are expecting, Madam President, that I will make a televised speech. Madam President, I want to encourage the general public to participate in this Nevis Department of Labor exercise. It is geared towards ensuring safety in the workplace and in particular on our construction sites. Madam President, we have been very fortunate and lucky over the years when it comes to accidents on construction sites. We have had accidents on construction sites here before, Madam President, and the Labor Department is doing their very best to try and mitigate against these accidents, Madam President, by giving the general public the necessary information to ensure that on construction sites we can see the level of safety, Madam President. Madam President, I did say that I would make a very brief statement, and with your permission, Madam President, I hope that this very brief statement would not only update the general public as it regards to the water situation, and also to advise the general public as it regards to the Nevis Labor Department week of activities, Madam President, in the month of April. May it please you.
Madam President, colleagues, members opposite, audience in the gallery, those viewing and listening online. Good morning. Madam President, I seek your leave to give brief updates as to some of the events and activities that are taking place in the Ministry of Health, Gender Affairs, and Social Empowerment. As we are in the month of March, I will begin with activities and events relating to International Women's Month. We would have celebrated International Women's Day on March 8th. So to all the women in the room, happy International Women's Month. We are very much deserving of being recognized in that way. This year we celebrated globally under the theme, Invest in Women, Accelerating Progress. Annually, this is marked by a series of events, activities that are geared towards sensitizing the general public, education, and of course, empowerment of women. These activities this month began, of course, with the blessing of God, with a church service on March 2nd that was held at the Manning Seventh-day Adventist Church. On March 8th, the team of the Department of Gender Affairs gathered their numbers and participated in the Nevis Youth Careers Expo. There they were able to engage with secondary school students and sensitize and educate them about issues relating to gender as well as specific issues relating to women. On March 23rd, that was Saturday, we partnered with TDC to host an introductory mechanic course for women. I had the pleasure of being one of the participants there, and you saw the engagement where women actively were trying to empower themselves to be able to get that technical expertise that is often not present in terms of vehicle maintenance. The numbers that we were able to cater to on Saturday was 14, and the session was so booked that we have to have another session in April. Madam President, a moment, technology. This is why we should stick to pen and paper sometimes. You know? Good old school sometimes is, is in our favor. I'm trying to be young, Madam President. They tell me I'm the youth representative, so I try to get in there, but I'm clearly finding out right now that I'm closer to the members on my side than anything else. But I will keep progressing, Madam President. Yes, so we had the car clinic with TDC, and yesterday, in collaboration with the Honourable Latoya Jones, she would have held her 4th annual Women's Self-Empowerment Workshop. That saw some 40 participants getting to engage in sessions relating to mental health, education, finances, as well as women in leadership. I had the pleasure of facilitating the session on women in leadership, and so I can attest to the fact that the participants were well engaged and appear to take quite a lot of knowledge from that session. On tomorrow, March 27th, we will be executing a Women in Politics discussion at 2 p.m. at the Jessup's Community Center, so I'm inviting any members of the general public who would like to attend that session to please come and join us. Some of the panelists are myself, Honourable Latoya Jones, Honourable Iseline Phillip, Honourable Janice Daniel Hodge, and the moderator for the day is Catherine Seabrooks Wilkinson. So that promises to be quite an engaging conversation where we discuss women in politics. On March 28th, we will have our annual Women's Award, and I'm going to take a moment to identify the individuals who are recipients this year, as they are truly deserving of recognition in every forum that we have available to us. So Heather Perkins will be awarded for her outstanding contribution to the service industry. Patricia Descent in early childhood. Aquila Maloney for law and law enforcement. Alison Atherton, communication and entertainment. And Lynn Manners for small business, as well as Roxanne Brooks for charity and volunteerism. I'm certain that all of us who've interacted with these women can agree that they are well deserving of this award. On March 30th, we moved to our Emergence workshop, and that workshop will target around 30 women, and it will deal with women and work and how to manage your mind in that setting. Madam President, we recognize the value of these types of activities during the month in particular, but our work for women in the community is not limited to just the month of March or these social empowerment type activities. We want to have true policies in place that would empower women and girls all year round. And thus, through the NIA, we have made significant investments in a number of areas that are beneficial to women and girls in particular. So one example of that was the daycare voucher assistance program that was implemented last year. While that program is accessible to both men and women who are parents, we understand that the context of our society is that quite a number of our homes, an overwhelming number of our homes, are in fact led by single mothers. And so this program is especially beneficial to these women to financially as well as to provide that support in terms of work-life balance. Madam President, last year we would have talked a lot as well about the free mammogram services that we made available to all women in the Federation from June to December 31st. And I'm happy to report that 399 women would have taken advantage of that service. And that is one of those policies that you can see the numbers quite clearly, that many women were able to benefit from something like that. So it's not always simply about the celebrations, but we have to put tangible plans and policies in place to actually assist our women. We also provided pap smears through our health centers, and this is addressing a critical healthcare need for women in our society. Our Teen Mother Second Chance program is also up and running with the Department of Social Services, and again, that is a program specifically to address our young mothers, where we offer guidance, resources, and support to navigate the challenges of parenthood, especially at a young age. The Department of Gender Affairs has also begun spearheading a menstrual health management and education program in our schools that targets not only our girls, but our boys as well. Because if you help the opposite sex to understand issues that are affecting women, you in turn help women more as well. So that program is ongoing, and it is being well received in the schools and by the students currently. Looking ahead, the Ministry of Health is currently fine-tuning the rollout of an additional enhanced antenatal policy, and this will provide additional support for pregnant women in the form of care, testing, and ensuring a healthier start for both mother and newborns. Madam President, I will pivot a bit and move away from the activities related to Women's Month. And at this time, on behalf of the Ministry of Health and the Nevis Island Administration, as well as the Federation at large, I want to be able to say a public thank you to the health professionals from the Lesser Antilles Medical Assistant Team, LAMAT, who would have visited the Federation and provided critical healthcare services to individuals in St. Kitts and Nevis. We had 14 individuals who were based here on Nevis, and they provided medical assistance in terms of dentistry, audiology, and emergency medicine at the Charlestown and Brownhill Health Center, as well as the Alexandria Hospital. Madam President, I want to reassure the public that all forms of health care that we introduce to the public in Nevis is good for everyone. And as a testimony of that, I of course participated in the program as well, because sometimes you have individuals wondering if it's a mediocre health care or drug or something that you're introducing to them. But this is excellent care, and I had the pleasure of being treated by Dr. Chan yesterday. I got a nice dental cleaning, and so I think the feedback from the other patients who were on site was that it was very professional service, it was excellent. Our local dentists and health professionals on the ground also benefited from that knowledge exchange, sharing of expertise, and I think it was an excellent initiative all around. So thank you to our partners and our local medical professionals on the ground. Recently, the Urology Associates would have conducted their annual prostate screening. It's not all about women. We partner to make sure that our men are taken care of as well. So for the annual prostate screening, this year they saw 608 men register, with 600 actually completing the process of testing. 78 of these individuals were first-timers, so we see that we have a large number of repeat visitors, and that is what we aim to maintain, as well as encouraging more men as they reach that age of 40 to start getting screened, because the best prevention is knowing your status World Health Day will be celebrated on April 7th this year, and thus in collaboration with TDC, the Ministry of Health, as well as the Taiwan ICDF, TDC will be hosting a health and wellness fair in the Longstone Building parking lot in Charlestown on April 5th. So most of the screenings are free. The screenings are free, in fact. You have mental health assessments, HIV testing, weight, BMI, dental screenings. So please come out. A lack of funds is not an excuse because they're all free. So come out, know your numbers, know your status, and get the necessary care that you may need. In terms of the SKN Move, Nevis chapter, they are very active subgroup in Nevis, and on Saturday they would have hosted their 6th annual Half Island Relay. I think the members of the House should form a team next year and participate in that. But this year we saw 3 teams, and we recognize it's not always quantity but quality, and it was a quality set of individuals who participated, and the Defense Force would have come out on top, so we can say that we are certain that our Defense Force is fit and ready to protect us in case we need that level of protection. TDC Group also participated and placed 2nd, and the Ministry of Health participated and placed 3rd. I participated in the Ministry of Health team just so that I can say, do as I say and do as I do. That's why you came 3rd? I finished. We came 3rd, yes. 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 So we participated, we finished, and we are a little bit healthier for it. The Nevis chapter of the SKN Move keeps innovating. They want to get every aspect of society up and active. So on Sunday the 31st, they are hosting the inaugural 5K sprint bike relay starting at 6 a.m. from the TDC parking lot in Bayfront. So there will be 6 teams participating in that. I am not one. I know my limits. I will run, I will not bike. But I'm encouraging everyone to come out, support, and participate when the different activities arise. If I move quickly to the Department of Community Development, we, in recognition and celebration of Culturama 50, we are launching on Wednesday, tomorrow, the Best Kept Village competition. Madam President, everyone, most of us, will tell you our village is the best village. It is the best kept village. So now we're hosting a friendly competition between villages to highlight that community spirit, cleanliness, working together to actually showcase that your village is indeed the best kept in Nevis. This competition isn't about which villages has the wealthiest individuals to build the biggest houses. It's about that community spirit, cleanliness, general tidiness of the community. So tomorrow more details will be given regarding that competition. And I know some individuals has already asked me about prize money. I think the best prize we can offer is that pride. And that is the best prize that we're offering, as well as a signage to your village to showcase that you are the best kept village in Nevis for 2024. Every time anyone steps in, that's what they will see. And you can have that pride daily. Madam President, I will wrap up just about now, but I have one more mention, and this is to say a happy belated birthday to Miss Olga Matilda, also known as Frances Jeffers. On March 15th, she celebrated her 100th birthday, and so she is the newest centenarian in Nevis, and I say a happy, happy birthday to her, and we're looking forward to adding quite a few more centenarians in the coming years. as we move towards a more healthy and sustainable Nevis. Madam President, thank you.
Recognize the member for Nevis 3.
Thank you, Madam President, and let me say good morning to you and to my colleagues on this side, to the members opposite, and all of us who are here in this honorable house today. I rise as well to make some brief remarks with regards to two of the areas in my ministry, two specifically, agriculture and culture. Madam President, I think we all are aware that this past week we would have hosted, the Department of Agriculture, Ministry of Agriculture would have hosted our signature event. We have been having this event now for 28 years. And so we would have hosted the 28th edition of the Agri Expo. Of course, it was renamed the Agri Expo last year because of its growth. Previously, it was the Agriculture Open Day. But it is an event that many persons look forward to, and I would say all of Nevis look forward to, not only Nevis, but St. Kitts and further afield. And I want to place on record my sincerest gratitude and commendation to my staff at the Ministry and the Department of Agriculture for rising to the challenge again and hosting another quality event that would go down in the books as one that has been very successful, one that has been very memorable. And I think that the staff at the department and the Ministry of Agriculture continues to show their mettle, their grit, and how well they can organize an event of this magnitude. Organizing an event of this magnitude takes quite a lot, and they have always been there, always rising to the challenge. I know it has been very rough organizing these events. Sometimes the tempers flare, but in the end, everything always comes together nicely. And I am assuming that all who would have attended, I hope you attended as well, Madam Minister. I'm sorry, Madam President. I hope all who would have attended would have enjoyed the experience being at the ETW Park last week, Thursday and Friday. I certainly did. I attended on both days. And it was indeed a spectacle, an agricultural spectacle, because of course what we try to do at this event is to portray everything agriculture. And of course we have said in this honorable house, and on every opportunity we get, we as an administration have been placing quite a lot of emphasis on agriculture. And so it is being shown on the ground. It is being shown in the produce that we have. It is shown in all of what we do. And it's brought there at the ETW Park every year towards the end of March. I want to say a special thank you to our patron for accepting the opportunity to be the patron for this year, Ms. Valerie Ermin Hendrickson, who has been an agro-processor and who actually has been with the event for its entirety. She would have been with the event from it started up at a prospect in our natural environment. Then we moved to the villa. We outgrew the villa. Now we have moved to the ETW Park, which I think will be our permanent home. And I must say kudos to Ms. Hendrickson for being with us over these 28 years and leading by example. I also want to say a special thank you to all who took part in the event, because every year we tend to get more and more persons. And so we want to say thanks to all of the government institutions, the government departments, allied agencies, all the institutions and organizations and individuals, the farmers, the vendors, all who came out in their numbers. I think this year we had a record number in terms of participants, and we want to say a special thank you because, of course, this event can only be as successful as the participants make it. And so we want to say a special thank you to them. We want to also say a special thank you to our guests from St. Eustatius, or what we call Statia. Because over the years, Madam President, the interest has been generated not only in Nevis, not only in St. Kitts, but further afield. And we have been having a contingent coming from Statia every year for a number of years now. And every year, thankfully, the numbers grow. Because those who come, they take the message back and they say how successful the event is. And so we are very thankful for our friends from Statia, the head of the delegation, Mr. Van Putin, and the entire team. Last year we had 150 persons. This year we had in excess of 200 persons. And so they are an integral part of our Agri-Expo now. And so thank you very much, Statia. We look forward to seeing you again next year. We also want to say a special thanks to our sponsors. Of course, these events cost money. And we want to say a special thanks to all of our sponsors, the Nevis Island Administration, National Bank, which was the official bank of the Agri-Expo, Flow, Lefco, Equipment Rental and Construction Company Limited, the Finnish Touch, Brands Architectural Services, the Nevis Housing and Land Development Corporation, Nature's Best, and a special thanks as well to the East Caribbean Group of Companies, ECGC. And I must make special mention of ECGC because ECGC, I believe, has been with us as well from the inception. And normally, of course, we know that we get most of our animal feeds from ECGC, based in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. And when we call on ECGC, whether it's during our open day, during our fruit festival, any event that we're having, and we call on ECGC, they are always there to give a helping hand. And of course, they would have donated handily again this year. I was very pleased when I visited the ECGC booth that 3 persons journeyed from St. Vincent to be a part of this exposition that we are having here on the island of Nevis. I interacted with the 3 persons, and they were overjoyed to be here on the island of Nevis. And during their presence here for the 2 days, when I visited them on Friday, I visited them on both days, but when I visited on Friday, they were actually doing a tasting, giving persons who attend or visit the booth an opportunity to taste the local chicken and the local ham prepared by our abattoir. And why they were so proud to do this? Because they're saying, listen, these chickens and these pigs that you're consuming are the product of the feeds from ECGC. And I was pleased, even more pleased when they said to me, we have bought products, chicken and ham, to take back to St. Vincent. They said, we wish we could have bought more. We have them in our freezer and we're going to take them back to St. Vincent. We are going to show off when we get back to St. Vincent of the excellent products that have been produced on the island of Nevis. And that, of course, we should be proud of, Madam President. And I also, as I speak about ECGC, I want to say kudos as well to the local manager there at the supply office, Mr. Ricky Liebert, because, of course, we know ECGC is based in St. Vincent. But anytime we make the call to Mr. Liebert, he has always relayed the message, and we have always gotten positive results from ECGC. So, Mr. Liebert, you and your team there at the supply office, we say thank you very much for your support over the years, and we look forward to that continued support as we move forward. And so I want to say thanks as well to all of the patrons, all of the persons from Nevis, from St. Kitts, from further afield, who came out in their numbers as usual and supported our Agri-Expo this past Thursday and Friday at the ETW Park. I'm going to move, Madam President, quickly to culture. And I have also been given a note to say that we had a team from SABRE as well. And so we want to say thanks to the team from SABRE who came and they introduced an agricultural program in the schools. As a matter of fact, they came for the first time. We saw a contingent of students and teachers. They're saying they're trying to get the program introduced in the schools in Saba, and they chose Nevis to bring their students to show them what is happening on the island of Nevis. Best practices. Madam President, of course, we know that we had contingents here last year from Anguilla, from St. Kitts, from Antigua, Statia people now coming, and now we got a contingent from Saba as well. So we are delighted that what we are doing is getting the interest and the attention of our neighbors. Madam President, let me move quickly to culture. And of course, we know we are having our 50th anniversary of Culturama this year. And I must say that the plans are progressing quite well for the hosting of Culturama 50, Madam President. And just wanted to give a few updates. Now, yesterday, the marketing committee launched a new mobile app called the Nevis Culturama mobile app. And Madam President, this app is designed to provide Nevisians at home and in the diaspora, and anyone, as a matter of fact, who have been showing an interest in the festival, to witness the festival, all of the information that they need about Culturama in one place. Of course, you would have seen Madam Minister when she was here, the Senator. She was all in a tech thing. And so we are telling persons to get techie and download the app. You can get the app, and so we are asking persons to download the Culturama app to take Culturama 50 wherever you go with you. Now, the mobile app provides the following: latest Culturama 50 news and notices, access to the Culturama 50 schedule of events, a mobile platform to listen to the latest music releases from bands, soca artists, and calypsonians, details on all shows such as the junior and senior pageants, junior and senior calypso competitions, panorama contests, etc. It also gives you the opportunity to browse of the Culturama 50 photo galleries, viewing live stream events, watching featured videos of Culturama 50 participants, voting for your favorite pageant contestants, because that has become a big thing over the years, purchasing tickets online, and connecting with the new Culturama committee on Facebook, as well as listening to the Culturama Fever radio. So I'm encouraging all persons who have the Android and the iPhones to please download the app from the Google Play Store and the Apple Store today, and please take Culturama with you wherever you go, and encourage other persons to download the app as well. I must also inform members of the public, Madam President, that this past Thursday, March the 21st, the senior pageants, contestants, and participants signed the contracts with the Nevis Culturama Committee, and thus cementing their participation in the Miss Culture Queen Pageant, the Miss Culture Swimwear, and the Mr. Cool. I'm pleased to announce that we will have 6 contestants vying for Miss Culture, 5 contestants for Miss Culture Swimwear, and 5 participants for the Mr. Cool. And so these are shows that I know persons normally look forward to. And I can also indicate, Madam President, that the Miss Culture Queen for 2024, the C50 Miss Culture Queen, will receive a cash prize of $20,000, plus that scholarship to Monroe College. And the Mr. Cool and the Miss Swimwear winner will each receive a cash prize of $12,000. So, Madam President, we have stepped up significantly with regards to our cash prizes for this year. Let me also indicate that this coming Sunday, March the 31st, we will see the first in a series of what we call pan-yard concerts at the Malcolm Gishard Recreational Park. Of course, we know pan has now become a big thing on the island of Nevis, and so we have organized this thing called a pan-yard every last Sunday of the month at the Malcolm Gishard Park, and it starts at 4 p.m. It will be a nice, relaxing afternoon, and we're asking persons to come and support. It's being spearheaded by the music department of NCDF. And this Sunday will feature performances by the Community Development Steel Orchestra, Wally Rhythms, Poinciana Rhythms, and guest performers will be the EBJ Harmonics out of St. Kitts. And there will also be cultural performances and a special guest performance by Speedy, backed by a steel orchestra. And of course, I want to publicly commend Speedy on the song. I heard it, that has been released. Excellent song for C50, and we are looking forward to a lot more releases very shortly. So we are inviting folks in Nevis and St. Kitts to come and join us at the Malcolm Gishard Park this coming Sunday from 4 for Panyard. Madam President, on Saturday, February the 24th, Go Live was launched. This is a live online interactive virtual series hosted by the Nevis Culturama Committee, and it seeks to provide information to the general public through interviews with various committee members and participants in this year's festival. It also provides a platform for soca artists, calypsonians, and bands to release their music and promos for C50. I'm also happy to report, Madam President, that work on the cultural complex and the cultural village have started. 10 contractors and the Public Works Department, thank you, member for Nevis 1. The Public Works Department will undertake the repairs and upgrades to the venues in preparation for Culturama 50. And we thank the Minister of Finance as well, and the member for Nevis too. Because if we don't have the money, we can't do anything, Madam President. Now, of course, Madam President, we are expecting a lot of people. A swell, a groundswell of people for Culturama 50. And so we are doing a little bit of sprucing up in the cultural complex and in the village. The work at the cultural complex would see a significant upgrade to the interior of the concession stalls, where each stall would experience an upgrade to the electrical system, new hand washing and washing up sinks, an entirely new roof, raising the floors of some of the booths, which normally get flooded during rainy season sometimes. Now, the work at the cultural village, which would be much more than at the cultural complex, would involve constructing 5 corporate boxes, 2 on the cultural complex side, 3 on the ETW Park side, and of course those will be rented to our corporate sponsors. And of course through this, we are creating more space as well for the expected increased numbers of persons who will be attending the shows. Additionally, the performance stage area would be increased. We have had complaints over the years from our local, regional, and international artists that the performance area is a bit too small. And so we are increasing the stage area. However, we would not be decreasing the area for our patrons. And so what we'll be doing, we'll be removing the dressing rooms at the back of the existing stage, and we will be relocating those dress rooms to a corner in the cultural complex. We will also be constructing a new bathroom facility for the expected huge crowds for Culturama 50. Let me also indicate that the Culturama 50 jingle competition, so 10 submissions, of course, this was launched at our press conference in January at the MGR Park, and we would have received 10 submissions. The judging is expected to take place this week, and we are expecting to announce the winner very, very shortly. I must also indicate that registration remains open for our Junior and Senior Calypso contest, for the Groovy and Power Soca Monarch contest, the Mr. and Miss Talented Youth pageant, Road March, Juve troops, Junior and Senior parades, the Art, Craft, and Cultural Food Fair, as well as the street vending. And Madam President, as I mentioned, street vending, let me say here now that we normally have a lot of vendors in Charlestown for Culturama. But the vendors normally do things haphazardly. They just set up haphazardly. We want to change that for Culturama 50. We want it more organized. And so we're asking persons who are interested in vending in Charlestown to kindly register at the Culturama Secretariat. We will be working very closely with the traffic department to ensure that we have organized vending. We know normally for Juve and for Parade of Troops, Charlestown is a hive of activity, and we normally have a lot of trailers, vans, vehicles, and so on, and we do not want anyone to be in danger. And so we want people to be safe, and so we are encouraging all vendors who are interested in vending for the season to kindly register, and we will organize the vending properly. We will allocate a spot to you And please, we're asking for your cooperation. And of course, as I wrap up very shortly, the Culturama Committee will be launching its online ticket sales. We know that a lot of persons in the diaspora will be coming home and they have been asking about online sales, and persons will be able to purchase their tickets before they get here, and so they'll have the tickets in hand before they get here. And so we will be launching that very shortly, and we are also informing members of the public in St. Kitts, in Nevis, and in the diaspora that for Culturama 50, we will be streaming pay-per-view. We will be streaming pay-per-view, but at a very reasonable and affordable fee. And so we, as I said, things continue to progress very smoothly for the hosting of Culturama 50. And so we're expecting all of us here on the island of Nevis and our Nevisians in the diaspora to come and participate and let us have a safe and incident and accident-free festival. Madam President, thanks for your indulgence, and I want to thank you for allowing me to make this brief presentation on the statements by ministers. May it please you, Madam President.
Recognize the member for Nevis 2.
Madam President, good morning, and good morning to my colleagues on this side and certainly colleagues on the opposition benches. Madam President, I rise to make a brief statement to do with the constitution of the Integrity in Public Life Commission. You will recall that we came to this Honourable House and passed certain amendments to the Integrity in Public Life Ordinance with a view to resolve an issue that had arisen in relation to the appointment of a third member of that very important commission. You will also recall that the situation after the elections of December 12, 2022 was that we have only had 2 members of that commission appointed. One, the chairperson, having been appointed by Her Excellency, our Deputy Governor General, in her own wisdom and on her own volition, and the other being a member appointed on my recommendation to the Deputy Governor General. The third member has been in limbo for some time, as that was contemplated to be within the purview of the members opposite. I am to report to the House and to the island today that I engaged with members opposite by way of letter, and it became apparent that there was no consensus among the members opposite as to a nominee for that position of the third member of the Integrity Commission. Pursuant, I believe it is, to Section 3C of the Integrity in Public Life Amendment Ordinance, in the absence of their agreement as to a nominee, it means that the authority to appoint a third member fell to the Premier, in which capacity I currently serve, after consultation with the members opposite. I have engaged with the members opposite, as I indicated, by letter, and we have my nominee that I have proffered, and at least one member opposite has indicated no objection to that nominee. And I want to just emphasize that the onus under the legislation is for me to consult, not to have consensus or agreement. But one member opposite did indicate that she had no opposition. I have not had the benefit of a response from the other member opposite, but I have gone ahead and indicated to the Deputy Governor General that the third member of that commission will be Attorney at Law, Mrs. Diana Claxton Whitaker. Mrs. Claxton Whitaker is a young woman. She is an established practitioner of the law here, having had just about 10 years membership at the bar. And it is my considered view that she satisfies the requirements for appointment to such an important body as the Integrity in Public Life Commission. I want, therefore, to say to the House and to the public that after much backing and forthing, to-ing and fro-ing, and after having to come here to amend the legislation, that we now have constituted the Integrity in Public Life Commission and anticipate that it will continue with the important work that we're seeking to do as it relates to transparency, good governance, and a more open government and a more open system to instill greater confidence in the members of the public. Thank you very much, Madam President.
Thank you.
Personal explanations. Introduction of bill and first reading.
Recognize the member for Nevis 2.
Madam President, I rise again, this time in my capacity as Minister of Finance in the Nevis Island Administration, to introduce and have read for the first time the Nevis International Banking Amendment Bill 2024.
Member for Nevis 3.
Madam President, I rise to second the motion.
The question is that the bill shortly entitled Nevis International Banking Amendment Bill 2024 be read a first time. Those in favor?
Aye.
Those against? The ayes have it.
A bill to amend the Nevis International Banking Ordinance Cap 7.5 in bracket N and for matters related thereto or connected therewith.
The bill has been read a first time.
Adjournment.
Member for Nevis 3.
Madam President, I rise to move a motion for the adjournment of this Honourable House sine die.
Madam President, pleasant good morning. I seek your leave to speak briefly on the adjournment.
Let's have a seconder and then we'll take the...
Grateful. Madam President, I do second the motion.
Yes.
Thank you,
Proceed.
Madam President. Pleasant good morning, Madam President,
Good morning.
honorable members of the House, Clerk of the House, Sergeant of the Arms, and members in the public gallery. Madam President, I rise on this occasion just to say thank you to yourself, Madam President, and to the Clerk of the House, as well as the members on the government side, for your support during the period of my illness. Madam President, I am aware that I have been absent from this Honourable House for several parliamentary sessions, and I do apologize for that, Madam President. However, I was not well, and therefore I am very grateful for your indulgence and, of course, for the leave that you granted for my absence. Madam President, I also wish to take this opportunity to thank my beloved constituents of St. Thomas's Parish and to all persons who would have reached out to me by way of telephone call, text, and those who generally gave their support during the period of my illness. I am happy to report that I am still recovering. However, I am in better health than I was last year and in the previous months. So the journey continues, Madam President, but I am indeed grateful for all of the support that I have received from the general public. Madam President, thank you so much.
Thank you. Is that it for members wishing to speak on the adjournment? Yes.
Madam President, I rise on the occasion of the adjournment to publicly express to Lady Sheila Daniel of Braziers, the spouse of our national hero, Sir Simeon Daniel, my sincerest condolences on the loss of her son and my very close friend, Sean Henville, and classmate, Sean Henville. I use the occasion also to express deep condolences to Sean's wife, Angela, and his daughter, Sienna, and certainly to his brother, Adrian Daniel, who is as a brother to me. Madam President, the news of the loss of Sean came as quite a shock to me, and certainly I'm sure to all, because he was still a young man. In fact, our birthdays are just a few weeks apart. And I believe, if I'm correct, that he would have attained the age of 55 on the 2nd of February. I always tease him to say he was born on Groundhog's Day. It was a running joke that we had all throughout our school life. Sean has been a pioneer in terms of being a pilot, having worked for Liat, flown for Liat, having flown for Caribbean Star, I think it was called, and having flown in the early days for Nevis Express. In his later life, he would have flown for DHL, the cargo carrier. And it is ironic that just 2 days before his sudden and untimely passing, that he and I were engaged in certain conversations surrounding our proposed airport facility and a role that we thought he might be able to play to assist us with that facility. It is said by those who are religious, those who have faith, that it is not for us to question God, and that God's plan is always perfect. But it is perhaps human to ask why now, and to ask a number of questions, none of which, Madam President, we have the answers for. So all I can do as the Premier of Nevis is to stand at this rostrum today to express my deep and profound sadness at the loss of a good Nevisian, somebody who has contributed significantly, somebody who, in my respectful view, was an asset to this island and to our people, and certainly to the development of aviation in the island of Nevis and the wider Federation. His loss will be certainly felt acutely by his wife and young daughter, also by his mother and brother, and his extended family. And I hope that words expressed here, and I'm sure words that will be expressed elsewhere, will provide some comfort to them in this very, very difficult time